There's someone you talk to nearly every day whom you haven't actually seen in years. Not because they moved away, because at some point your mind took a snapshot of them, filed it, labeled it, closed the case, and ever since, whenever they walk into the room, it quietly serves you the file instead. You look at them, you see the snapshot. And the genuinely strange part is that it never feels like a snapshot. It feels exactly like them. Your mother is in your head as a finished picture. So is your boss. So is the friend who let you down in 2019 and the ex you've long since fully explained to yourself. And hold this thought for later. So are you. A whole gallery of portraits, painted by you, curated by you, and then mistaken by you for the people themselves. Today's question is very simple and slightly frightening. When did you last see anything? Not the picture of it, the thing itself. 25 centuries ago, a tradition started asking that exact question. And a few centuries into the Common Era, it produced a text that asks nothing else. By the end of this lesson, you'll know why that text puts an extraordinary line in the Buddha's own mouth. His followers had cataloged 32 glorious marks on his body, and in this text he turns to 1,000 students and tells them that anyone looking for him there is looking in exactly the wrong place. And this week, you'll get one real conversation to test it on. The snapshot problem is not a bad habit you happen to have picked up, and it isn't fixed by trying harder to pay attention. It's how perception itself is built. You've been shown previews your whole life. One note before we start. There's one section later today that some people find genuinely destabilizing. I'll flag it when we get there, and it's fine to stop. Nothing here needs to be forced. Here's where you're standing. The Heart Sutra region is behind you, fully lit. You're inside the Diamond Sutra now, the blade, and this is the second of its 4 lessons. Last lesson gave you the line that stopped an illiterate woodcutter dead in a marketplace. Give rise to a mind that rests on nothing. Non-abiding full engagement, no camping. And it gave you the tool, be a mirror, not a camera. A mirror reflects whatever stands before it completely and keeps nothing. A camera keeps everything and calls the keeping memories. Lesson 006 was about the camera's habit, the keeping, the camping, the 3-day replay. Today we open the camera and look at what's actually stored inside. Because strictly speaking, the mind doesn't camp on things. It never had things. It camps on the pictures it took of things, and this whole lesson is about those pictures. How they get made, why you can't help mistaking them for the world, and what changes on the day you catch one in the act. Start with the claim in plain English. No scripture required. On this tradition's analysis, and a large body of cognitive science, describes perception in strikingly similar terms. You have never been in direct contact with the world. What you have been in contact with, your entire life, is a rendering a picture your mind assembles at speed from fragments and then presents to you with total confidence as just what's there. If hearing that lands as a genuinely unpleasant lurch rather than an interesting idea, that's the section I flagged a moment ago, feet on the floor, and it passes. And it sounds like armchair philosophy, until you remember that back in Lesson 4 we took the assembly plant apart, bolt by bolt. Remember this grid? 18 compartments. 6 receivers, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and the mind itself. 6 kinds of signal, 6 readouts. Everything you will ever experience arrives through those 6 doors, and every door does processing on the way in. Your eyes deliver an edited feed, not a window. Your ears deliver an interpretation. Your mind door delivers thoughts with the same salesman's confidence as all the rest. Lesson 004 called this the complete map of experience. Today, we add the step that lesson left out. What happens to the machine's output? It doesn't stream past and vanish. The mind takes a snapshot of it and files the snapshot away. You're watching this on YouTube, so you already know how this works better than any monk in that garden ever could. YouTube never shows you videos. It shows you thumbnails, small, bright, frozen previews, and you decide what a video is from its preview. Your mind runs the same architecture. Reality is too much bandwidth, so for every person, place, and situation you meet, it generates a compressed preview, simplified, punched up, heavily cropped, and stores that. And here's the design flaw the whole lesson turns on. Once the thumbnail exists, the mind stops streaming. Why watch the live feed when there's a perfectly good picture on file? Hold on to this mapping. It carries the whole lesson. The thumbnail is the snapshot. The video is the thing itself. The Diamond Sutra has a name for the thumbnail. In Chinese, it's one character, xiàng. Behind it sit two Sanskrit words, and the fact that Chinese uses one character for both is going to matter later. In this chapter, it's lakṣaṇa, a distinguishing mark, what you identify a thing by. When the sutra turns on the self, next lesson, it's samgya, a notion, the idea you've formed of something. One Chinese character, two jobs, the mark on the thing and the picture in your head, which is exactly the confusion this lesson is about. A mark is whatever you recognize a thing by the handle your mind grabs it with. Your mother's mark, your boss's mark, the well-worn mark labeled me. And the reason this little word earns its place in your vocabulary is that the sutra is about to issue a verdict on every single one of them, with no exceptions. In 8 of the most quoted characters in all of Chinese Buddhism. Before we open the text, a quick check on your own equipment. When you look at the face of someone you've known for 20 years, what is your brain mostly giving you? A live feed, fresh raw data, every single glance. B, a stored file, patched with the occasional update. 3, 2, 1. The honest answer is B, and you don't need a brain scanner to recognize it, just an awkward memory. Ever walked straight past a close friend who changed their hair? Ever seen your phone in the empty pocket where it usually lives? Ever read a whole sentence wrong because you expected different words to be there? In a much-cited 2013 review, the philosopher and cognitive scientist Andy Clark made the case for a brain that runs prediction first and correction second. It sketches what ought to be there, then patches the sketch with samples of what is. It's fast, it's efficient, and it means that whenever the incoming signal is noisy, ambiguous, or familiar, the file tends to win. The sutra noticed the same design, without the lab coats, and drew a much sharper conclusion. Sit with the size of this for a moment. If the mind trades in snapshots, then everything you've ever loved was a snapshot plus a person. Everything you've ever feared was a snapshot plus a situation. Every grudge you're currently maintaining is an old snapshot, reviewed and quietly reinforced each time you remember it. So the question, what exactly is a snapshot worth, stops being academic and starts being your whole life. One ancient conversation answers it, and the core of the verdict is just 8 characters long. Time to hear it properly. Some quick scene setting, because the staging is half the shock. The Diamond Sutra, as we said last lesson, isn't a sermon, it's a transcript, a recorded conversation between the Buddha and one of his most senior students, a monk named Subhuti, sitting in a monastery garden called the Jeta Grove, just after the midday meal, in front of more than 1,000 colleagues. One honest note on what this document is. It's written as a transcript, and I'll keep describing it that way, because that's the form it takes. But scholars date the text itself to somewhere around the 2nd to 4th century of the Common Era, centuries after the Buddha. So read it as this tradition putting its sharpest argument in his mouth, the way a dialogue of Plato puts one in Socrates. That doesn't weaken the argument. It just means the shock we're about to hear is the tradition turning on its own most sacred image, which is, if anything, braver. Very early in that conversation, chapter 5, in the traditional numbering, the Buddha asks Subhuti a question that sounds like small talk and turns out to be a landmine. 2 pieces of background, and you're ready. First, the tradition the early texts included held that a fully awakened being carries 32 distinguishing bodily marks. This is canonical material, with its own discourse devoted to it, not a later legend. So the tradition had a checklist, a body you could read greatness from. Strictly, those marks were said to point to a great man who might turn out to be a world conqueror or a Buddha, but in practice, people looked for the awakened one in the body. And here's the joke hiding in the Chinese. Character for character, those 32 marks are 32 xiàng. So when the Buddha asks whether you can find him in his marks, he is running the test on the most authoritative marks the tradition owns his own. Second, one word, Tathāgata. It's the title the Buddha used for himself. It means, roughly, the one who has thus come. Commentators on this line read the second use as more than the man, as a name for reality arrived, at what the tradition later calls the Dharma body. Keep both jobs in view. In this conversation, it's his name, and it's shorthand for reality itself. That double meaning is about to do some very heavy lifting. So the Buddha asks Subhuti, essentially, can you see me the Tathāgata by my bodily marks? Pause and actually predict the answer. And remember whose appearance is on the table here. The single most revered appearance in the entire tradition. His own. Subhuti, what do you think? Can the Tathāgata be seen by his bodily marks? No, world-honored one. The Tathāgata cannot be seen by his bodily marks. And why? Because what the Tathāgata calls bodily marks are not, in truth, bodily marks. The Buddha said to Subhuti, whatever bears a mark is hollow and false. If you see that all appearances are not what they appear to be, then you see the Tathāgata. Once more, slowly, with a hint after each move. Can the Buddha be seen by his appearance? No, and notice it's his own student who says so, without a heartbeat of hesitation. What the Tathāgata calls bodily marks are not bodily marks. There's the blade pattern from last lesson. Use the word, cancel the belief in it, keep using the word. Whatever bears a mark is hollow and false, and note the 2 words. The one behind mark here is xiàng, not the physical shape. The sutra is not saying matter is fake, and the words behind hollow and false, shu, wang, are exactly that empty, unreliable. The falsehood is the picture's claim, not a liar standing behind it. So read the line as, not one appearance is what it claims to be. Every mark, meaning every snapshot the mind has taken, no exceptions, is a picture, and not the thing. Hollow and false, deceptive, unreal. Same 8 characters, 3 ways of saying it in English. I'll use unreal. See that appearances are not what they appear, and you see the Tathāgata, and that 4th move is not what most people expect it to be. 4 moves. The rest of this lesson takes them one at a time. Move 1. Everything with a form, and the first job is to feel how wide that net is thrown. Faces are marks, obviously, but so is a voice on the phone. So is the word Monday, which arrives pre-soaked in dread. So is a company logo that somehow radiates trustworthiness, and the number that claims to be your net worth. So is a memory, a snapshot of an event, quietly retouched at every viewing. So is a plan, a snapshot of a future nobody has visited yet. And so is Every unit on Lesson 004's grid, whatever came in through those 6 doors, by the time you're experiencing it, it is already wearing a frame. Now, let the net close over the 2 places you'd least expect it to reach. Buddha, the serene golden figure from the incense, adverts that image as a mark too, and this very chapter just rejected it outright. And me, the character you've been playing since secondary school, with the fixed backstory and the well-documented limits, that is also a mark. Arguably, your masterpiece. The sutra comes for that one properly next lesson. Today, just notice it hanging in the gallery with all the others, in a rather expensive frame. Let's catch the machinery running live. A 10-second experiment, actually do this one, don't just hear about it. Look up from the screen and pick the nearest object, any object. Now try to see it, the color, the edge, the shadow it throws before the word for it arrives. For most of us, the word gets there first. Cup, lamp, charger. And if you managed a second of looking before the label landed, hold onto that second, because that's the whole skill. The label lands before the looking starts. And the moment the label lands, the looking politely stops filed, known next. That tiny reflex, repeated 100,000 times a day, is a snapshot covering a thing. You have just watched it happen, not in a scripture, on your own desk. And once you can see that snapshot reflex, you'll notice entire industries built on top of it. 2 handbags, same leather, same stitching, same factory district. One costs £90, one costs $1,900. Why? Because the expensive one carries a logo. And what is a logo? A snapshot somebody designed on purpose. Success, taste, membership. This is not a new metaphor, it's the same fact. What a brand does is take the picture for you in advance, so your mind can file it straight into the gallery. None of it is done to the leather. All of it is done inside your head. Move 2. Everything with a form is a deception. This is where careless reading produces spectacular nonsense, so quiz. When the sutra says all appearances are deceptive, is it claiming the world doesn't exist, that your job, your family, and this video are hallucinations and nothing is really happening? 3, 2, 1. No, and if that were the claim, you could throw the whole text away, because the world stubbornly keeps turning up every morning. Remember the discipline we learned across the whole Heart Sutra unit. This tradition never says things don't exist. It says things don't exist the way they appear to. Exactly the same discipline applies here. The snapshot is real as a snapshot. Your picture of your boss genuinely exists in your head, and it's even useful. You can hardly start from scratch with him every morning. So the point is not whether the picture exists, it's whether the picture is him. It exists. It isn't him. The deception isn't that the picture exists. The deception is the one standing lie every picture tells. I am not a picture. I am the person. And you pay for that lie in ordinary, daylight ways. Structured interviews, a fixed question list, and a scoring sheet predict job performance better than free-form ones. How much better is still argued over. The direction is consistent. Nobody in those rooms is lying. Everyone is answering the picture in their own head, faithfully. Which is why the sutra never went after dishonesty. It went after trusting the file. Here's the cleanest modern proof that deceptive and non-existent are 2 different accusations. A filtered photo. The photo exists. Pixels, servers, timestamps. The person exists. The lighting was real. The skin was smoothed afterwards. Nobody says the photo isn't there. The trouble begins at the precise moment somebody treats the photo as the person and feels cheated meeting the original in daylight. Now take the sutra's upgrade, which is the whole reason we're here. The mind's snapshots are all filtered. There is no filter setting on perception. The machine crops, brightens, and captions everything it stores, including your most cherished, most obviously true pictures. Which sets up the deepest question in this lesson, and I'd rather you held it than rushed it. Suppose a snapshot were perfectly accurate, unfiltered, unretouched, true in every detail on the day it was taken. Would it still be a deception? Keep that one loaded. It's the third quiz, and it lands right after Move 3. Move 3. If you see that appearances are not what they appear to be, notice everything this sentence does not say. It doesn't say, destroy the appearances. It doesn't say, close your eyes, delete the gallery, go numb when you see a face. The instruction is one shade subtler and infinitely more practical. The line literally says, see the marks as non-marks, and the way that cashes out in practice is, see the appearance as an appearance. Keep the picture. Drop the picture's claim. Not, there is no thumbnail. The thumbnail is right there on the screen, just, this is a thumbnail. And somewhere past it, the video is still running. Notice which verb the verse uses. It says see. It never says delete. The work is in how you look, not in what you erase. You've met this move before last lesson in the sutra's signature formula. X is not X, is called X. Now look back at the reading. Subhuti used it right there, unprompted. What the Tathāgata calls bodily marks are not bodily marks, and yet everyone carries on saying bodily marks, because the phrase still works perfectly well as a phrase. That's the entire gesture, one light stroke through the word, leaving it legible. You still say, my difficult colleague. You've simply stopped believing that your picture of them is them. The Diamond Sutra never confiscates your vocabulary. It confiscates the glue. Time to pay off the question you've been holding. A perfectly accurate snapshot, every detail correct on the day it was taken. Is it still, in the sutra's sense, a deception? 3, 2, 1. Yes, still a deception, and this is the sharpest edge in the lesson, so take it slowly. Because the question was never accuracy. The problem is built into what a snapshot is, a crop of something whole, a freeze of something moving, taken from one angle by one photographer. Your utterly truthful picture of who your father was in 2009 deceives you in 2026, not because it lies about 2009, but because he kept moving and the picture didn't. Accurate yesterday, presented as today, equals false. And go further, even a snapshot taken this second is still a crop, still an angle, still a caption chosen by you. There is no photograph without a photographer. That is why the verdict has no exceptions clause. The problem isn't the delay, it's that a picture is always somebody's picture. It isn't grading your photos, it's describing the format. In one line, deceptive is not a quality problem with the picture. It's an identity problem. However well it was taken, it is not the thing. Move 4. Then you see the Tathāgata, and it's time to settle the debt from the top of the lesson. Picture the scene once more. A teacher whose own tradition catalogs his 32 glorious marks, telling his students, while they are looking directly at him, that whoever seeks him in his appearance will never find him. Religious history mostly runs the other way. Build the image, gild the image, defend the image with armies. Here is a tradition demolishing its own founder's official portrait and putting the demolition in his own voice in Chapter 5. Because he could see exactly how it would go. People would end up worshipping the thumbnail and miss the thing it was a thumbnail of. Later, teachers in this tradition compressed that warning into a single image you may have met, the finger pointing at the moon. The pointing is genuinely helpful, that's why fingers, statues, scriptures, and 30-minute YouTube lessons exist at all. The failure mode is settling your gaze on the finger and admiring the fingernail. Chapter 5 is the Buddha noticing 1,000 devoted people staring at his finger and calmly folding it away. So, what do you actually see when the seeing through happens? Nothing new, and that is the beautiful anticlimax at the heart of this text. Tathāgata, remember, is doing double duty. His title, and a name for reality that has thus come, arrived as it is, before your captions land on it. The tradition has a name for what's left when the seeing through happens, the true aspect, the way things actually are, though the sutra immediately takes that back too. The true aspect is not another aspect. It isn't a better picture underneath. So the promise isn't a vision, it's subtraction. Just this street, still arriving, before you've finished deciding what it is. Just this person, still moving, with the file set down. The fog thins, and the mountain turns out to have been there the whole time. The sutra's boldest claim is that there was nothing hiding behind the pictures. There was only what keeps arriving, at 6 doors a second, faster than you can frame it. So the chapter hands you a 4-move sequence. Everything arrives as a picture. Every picture claims to be the thing. See the picture as a picture, and what remains is the real, arriving on its own, needing nothing added. Elegant, ancient, and completely useless if it stays theoretical. So let's carry it out of the Jada Grove and aim it at the hardest target I know of, a person you have completely, thoroughly, comfortably figured out. Everyone has one. The parent, you can predict to the syllable. The colleague filed under difficult in 2021, case closed. The partner whose sentences you finish, not out of tenderness, if we're honest, but because you're certain there's nothing left to load. Bring one specific face to mind. Pick someone safe this works. On relationships that have gone quiet, not on ones that cost you something to be in. Notice first how it feels to know someone this completely. It feels like intimacy, doesn't it? 20 years of data. Now run today's audit on that feeling. How much of what you see in this person is live feed from this month, and how much is a snapshot taken years ago, shown to you again and again? Actually answer it. When did that person last genuinely surprise you? And if the honest answer is years ago, here comes the uncomfortable follow-up. Is that because they stopped moving? Or because you stopped watching? So here is this week's experiment. I call it first meeting mode, and it costs you exactly 1 conversation. Zen has a name for the same muscle shashin, beginner's mind. This is just a way to actually run it on a Tuesday. 1 boundary first, and it isn't optional. This is for relationships that are safe and simply stale, the ones that have gone quiet, not the ones that hurt. If your read on someone is, this person harms me, or I shrink around them, or I'm always the one who ends up in the wrong, that is not an out-of-date snapshot. That is evidence, and you keep it. A relationship being tiring is not the same as a relationship being safe to reopen, and you are the only person who can tell which one this is. Nothing in this text asks you to reopen a door you closed for your own safety. Before you next talk to that person, catch the preview loading the little pre-verdict that arrives before they've said a word. Here's what they'll say. Here's how this goes. Here's who they are. You can't stop it loading. Predicting is simply what minds do. Just watch it load and label it. That's the file, not the person. Then, during the conversation, do exactly 2 things. Ask 1 question you don't already know the answer to, and listen for 1 detail, just one that doesn't fit the file. Remember, the goal is not to prove the snapshot wrong. It's to give the live feed 1 chance to beat it. Fair warning, results vary, and both outcomes are wins. Some weeks, the person says something, and you feel the frame actually crack for a second. There's a stranger looking out of a face you finished years ago. That's move 3 happening live. The appearance, seen as an appearance. To be clear about which experience, I mean, this is them looking newer, not you feeling less real. If it tips into the second, if you're the one who starts to feel unreal, that's the stop signal I mentioned at the start, not a deeper version of the practice. Other weeks, nothing dramatic happens at all except that you can now feel the difference between talking to someone and talking to your file on them. Feeling that difference even once is the skill. Everything after that is repetitions. Let's be precise about what we are not doing here. We are not declaring judgment a sin, and we're not pretending pattern recognition isn't useful. Your snapshots are how a finite mind survives an infinite world. You get to keep them. The practices, last lessons, turned one notch deeper. Hold the picture the way the mirror holds a face. Use it while it's in front of you. Let it stay provisional. Let the next moment overwrite it. Camera mind seals the file shut and calls it the permanent truth. Mirror mind keeps every snapshot as a pencil sketch and keeps the eraser. One last turn of the lens before we close, and this time it points at you. Everything we've said about your gallery of other people are running about you. Right now, versions of you hang in a few hundred heads. The you from a first impression in 2018, the you from your worst meeting, the job application you, the feed you that highlights real you, curated yourself, which is somebody's entire idea of your life. If that thought feels faintly suffocating, that's the section I flagged at the start, and it's a normal reaction to it. You don't have to do anything with the feeling. Notice it and hold it lightly. None of those portraits is you, and every owner is quietly certain theirs is. One thing worth saying plainly, and it covers the whole lesson, not just this part. There's a difference between a thought that's unsettling and a feeling that starts to make you unreal to yourself. If that second one is happening, stop the lesson here rather than pushing on. Some of what we've covered today, the idea that you never touch the world directly, that there's nothing hiding behind the appearances, can land badly on a mind that already feels unreal, and that's not a sign you've understood it wrongly. A few moments of feeling unreal that pass when you stand up and move around are ordinary. If it lasts for hours, keeps coming back, or is starting to get in the way of your day, that's worth raising with a doctor. It's a recognized condition with a name. And there are clinicians who work with it, not something to sit out alone. And if it ever goes past unsettling, if you feel unsafe, or you have thoughts of harming yourself, that is an urgent thing, not a lesson pacing thing. Contact your local emergency number or a crisis line now. This is a way of looking at pictures, not a state to force. And if this is a live issue for you, rather than a passing one, a qualified clinician is the right person for it, not a lesson on the internet. Closing check 3 questions. Quick fire. 1. What is a mark? The mind's snapshot of a thing, cropped, frozen, captioned the handle you grab instead of the thing itself. 2. Everything with a form is a deception. Does that mean nothing exists? No. The picture exists as a picture. The deception is the picture's claim to be the thing. 3. How do you see the Tathāgata? Not by adding a vision, by subtracting the overlay. See every appearance as an appearance, and reality is what was standing there all along. On the map, Diamond Sutra region, 2nd node, now gold. The blade has 2 cuts to its name. Last lesson, it cut the camping. This lesson, it cut the picture's claim to be the thing. 2 lessons remain in this unit, and the next one aims the edge somewhere. It takes real nerve to point it. Because there is one exhibit in your gallery we deliberately tiptoed past today. The oldest snapshot you own. The one labeled me. The sutra says that picture isn't one photo at all. It's 4, nested inside each other. A me versus you, A me that's one bounded creature among all the others, which in practice runs as us versus them, and a me that must keep going. 4 stories, so convincing that you have never once caught them in the act of being told. Next lesson. The 4 stories you tell about yourself, and why the sutra insists that putting them down is where real kindness begins, not where it ends. If this course is sharpening how you see, subscribe and turn on notifications 1 lesson a week, and the blade moves closer to home each time. Before you go, today's comment, question, and opinion, not a test. Think of the snapshot other people carry of you. What's the most out-of-date thing still in it? The thing you've outgrown that the file faithfully keeps showing? No need to name names. I read every answer. Before the assignment, the usual note. Dharma Decoded is educational commentary on classical Buddhist texts. It is not therapy, medical advice, or a substitute for professional care. If you're in distress, or if contemplative practice has left you feeling unreal or detached, please talk to a qualified clinician. Your assignment this week: 1 conversation. In first meeting mode with someone safe. Catch 1 frame in the act and find out who is actually there. This is Dharma Decoded.